But what goes on here is I'm going to put it up here a little bit. And you've got a double stroke roll now on these well-worn heads, flogged in fact. And what happens is when you're actually playing, what often happens is when you're playing on a snare drum, that's obviously your most bounciest skin, all that stuff. So you're using a fair amount of finger control, a la Billy Gladstone. You see, you've got that kind of thing. I'm doing it with mallets, but the Gladstone technique and things like that is well used by your metal guys and all that when you're doing blast beats and all that sort of stuff, you know, that kind of thing. And away you go. And what goes on with this is that when you're actually dealing with a snare drum that has bounce, and I've got the snares off with the mallets, there it is there. Now that's just fingers. And as you go through the different camera angles and stuff, you'll see that it has to be called finger control because my wrists aren't moving. Now, when I'm doing that, that's wrist control. That's what happens there. Now, what's this thing about torque ratio? What happens is as you go down the drums, the larger the drum, the less bounce you will have, you know, more floppy, like a trampoline, you know, like that. So what you have to do when you're looking at my wrists now, there's a kind of a blend happening. I'm using the fingers, like so. There's a little bit of a thing there, Bart Simpson, the sound of one hand clapping. That's very Zen joke. Okay, I'll move right along there. But anyway, what goes on? Can't win them all. So what happens is that what I have when I talk about things like this, you've got your wrist control, you've got your finger control, but really most of what we're doing is a blend between the two. I get a little bit suspicious when someone says, I only use molar technique, which is whip stroke, the vip, okay? Like dairy vip, the vipping post. That's Zappa again, I always come back to that joke. Vipping post. When you're whipping, you know, see, I'm whipping, you see. I'm going to get into that in a second, you see. So what happens with that is that when you're dealing with the vip, what happens is that there's a kind of a wrist movement there, the whip stroke, made popularized by Sanford Moeller. That's why it's attributed, the name is attributed. He didn't invent it, he researched it with drummers all the way back to the American Civil War and things like that. And what would happen is that it was attributed to his name, the Moeller technique, because he really made a science of it. I did a show a few years ago called The Science of the Tap, you know, that kind of thing. Should get my lab coat on. But anyway, what happens is you've got that vip, the vipping. You can see I'm pushing down. Now, there's that. And then when you're dealing with Billy Gladstone. Now, for those of you who don't know, Billy Gladstone was the house drummer for New York's Radio City Music Hall for many, many years. So what would happen is you'd hear this. Colgate Toothpaste presents Frank Sinatra. Strangers in the night. Oh, don't do that, Chris. Anyway. But what happens here is that when you're dealing with things like that, there's your Billy Gladstone, okay, because he was, you know, he's like Anton Fig, the very famous South Australian born, but the very famous drummer for the David Letterman show, you know, all that sort of stuff. I used to use his sticks. Man, what logs. How many trees had to die for that drumstick there? I don't know. Anyway, what happens there is that you've got this kind of business, and what you want to be able to try and do, it's very important to think in terms of a volume control. Now, I've got this mallet here. Look how much beaten up this. Oh, darling, I'm glad you're back. There you go. That isn't even felt. You know what that is? That's gauze you wrap around your ankle. I got that from the chemist. $5, mate. Thanks very much. Thank you, mother, for the rabbits. Didn't I do that joke last week, Tim? I did. Sorry about that. I'm yeah. Still a tough crowd back there. Anyway, so what happens is that you've got 1 to 10. Think of it like a volume control. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, we have terms that were made in Italy, okay? So what happens is that you can have piano, which means soft, okay? Just soft, okay? Not piano back there, piano here, okay? And then you have moderato, got to roll your R, moderato. And then you have forte, okay? And what really happens, if you're dealing with a fader control from 1 to 10, what you would have is piano could be thought of as 3, moderato is 5, and forte would be around about 7. And everything else will have a very attached to it. So piano, the musical term or the abbreviation is just P. But if you have PP, okay, it's very, okay, so it's very soft. If you have FF, okay, what happens? It's very loud, you see, that's what goes on. Then you can have MP, which is mezzo piano, moderately soft. So what we're dealing with is a way of expressing yourself with volume, you see. So what starts to happen is that if I was just to sort of just do the splash hats like I was talking about before, and then just do a roll, I can create something even as simple as that, like a single stroke roll. But ha! I said something as simple as, it's damn hard. Something a bit short and sweet there. Meow. Okay, dramatic.